Hello everyone. For the GirlScript's Regional Summit AP, I being your host, Abhinav Talari, will be showing you web development with Django. We'll be making a very basic blog using HTML, CSS, and Django and showing you how you can add more functionalities to it as we move forward. So first of all, I request all of you to choose your favorite text editor and open it. Once you've all done that, let's start with the most basic part of it. We need some software, some packages that we'll use for our project. So the first most package that we need in any Python project or Django project is the virtual environment. So let's install that. Since I've already installed virtual environment on my system, it shows this requirement is already satisfied. So let's create a virtual environment for our own purpose. So the command for it is virtual env. Now this will create a virtual environment in which we will be installing all the needed packages for us to move forward. After you do that, I suggest you activate the environment by using the command in Windows, which is Django environment scripts/activate. Once your environment is activated, now we'll install all the needed packages to it. The first and the most important would be Priyansh Nima. I don't think we can use Google Colab for it because Google Colab is a Jupyter Notebook kind of thingy. So I don't think you can perform Django development on it. I guess I cleared your doubt, Priyansh Nima. Well, initially it's taking a little bit of time right now, so I hope you guys can hold on. So I've installed the Django packages. So one more thing I'd like to install is pip install Django crispy forms. Well, we'll use this further when we move forward. So let's just install it first and then see what it does. If you have any doubts regarding the commands that I'm using or anything, please do ask in the comments. I'll address them. I'm sure everyone is on par with me, like they've completed the following commands. Also, you might be wondering, like, why are we doing Django, right? So as you know, almost every one of you uses Instagram. Instagram has millions of users and millions of people have followers. And it's all linked together. It all works together. You are allowed to post photos, go live on it. The whole thing, the whole Instagram is built upon Django. It's not scalable, it is scalable. So Django is very important, and for example, any web developer who's under a constraint of time and has to create something really wonderful in a very less amount of time, the go-to framework would be Django because it takes a lot of your load away from you, and it takes care a lot of the work in the backend. For example, the authentication. If you're using a Node.js or anything, if you wanted your own authentication, you would have to write like lines and lines of code for it. Django has all of that sorted out for you, and it'll be easy for you to move forward. Also, there's a saying or a line which says Django is the framework for perfectionist web developers who are under a constraint of time. So so moving forward, let's just create our first Django project. Okay. So the command for it is Django admin start project blog space, since we're creating a blog. As you can see, a blog space directory has been created. So this is like the first thing you do in your while you start a Django project. After that, let's create an app. So now I've created, as you can see, any project is made of small components, right? For any Django project, it's like more of small apps. So a very big project will contain these numerous apps, which together working asynchronously make a very good website. So once you're done with this part, let's just see like when we bare run the server, what we get. Sorry for that. Well, I forgot a very important thing that you might also forget. So after you create an app, the first thing that you'd like to do is include all the apps that you're making into your main website, right? So since blog space is my website and my blog is the app, I'd like to include my blog into the blog space. So the following things are the things which we need to do to include that. Okay. So once you're done that, go to blog space and go to settings.py. If you have any doubts so far, please ask in the comments that I'll address them. Moving forward, while you are at the settings.py, let's go to the installed apps, okay, and there add my blog right over here. And I'll rerun the server and see what I get. So once you do that, you'll get this running server which says that it's installed correctly and it's working correctly, right? So I hope this is clear so far. Let's move forward. And once you have done that, the next part would be, making templates, right? Like, since it was a pre-made template for you by Django, it shows that it's working correctly. Let's try creating something that we can use to show that our thing is working. Okay. So the first thing that we'll do is go to my blog, create a folder called templates, and in templates, let's create another folder called my blog, and inside the my blog, let's create home.html. In this, just write h1 hello all. This is my first Django project. Once you created this home HTML, let's go to settings.py of the blog space, and let's go down. And as you can see, there's a entry called as templates, and in that there's a thing called as dirs. So what we'll do is we'll write here os.path.join base dir, comma, double quotes, templates slash my blog. What it does is, whenever you create your HTML files, the Django has to search through it, right? So I guess I'm clear so far. Please write in the comments if you have any doubts. Well, as you can see, this is a plethora of files, like a lot of files which you don't actually understand. So I'll just give you a brief introduction of what all these mean. So whenever you create databases, it'll have certain schemas, and every time you add and delete something, Django also keeps a track of it. So in the PyCache, you'll have all those things. Okay, and init.py is an initialization file which is supposed to be there always, and the settings.py has all the settings that we have. So the templates directory, if the debug is true or not, or what is the middleware, what are the installed apps, and whatever that is over in settings is what makes the whole project like has this technicality to it. Okay, so I think those three, and the urls.py for the whole website is this file in which you include all the URLs of other apps. So the main website will have certain apps, and all these certain apps will have certain URLs, right? And all these URLs would be listed over here. I hope it is clear to you so far. If it is clear so far, let's try to print this home.html onto our main website. Like, okay, so what I want you to do is go to my blog, and my blog, go to views.py, and here create a function called as render home, which takes in request as a parameter, and it returns a rendered HTML, which also takes request, and the template name would be my blog slash home dot html. Is it clear so far? So once you've done that, like you have updated the views, what we'll do is go to the urls.py of our app. Since you can see there's no urls.py in it, what we'll do is we'll create a urls.py in it, and in this what we'll do is so when we've done that, as I told you that every app will have certain URLs, and we'll have to include all of these URLs into the main website. So what we'll do is, since this part is clear, we'll go to the urls.py of blog, that is the name of our app, and there we'll do is my blog. Actually, let's keep it empty for for the meanwhile, and do include my blog dot urls. So as you can see, this include was not imported already, so we'll have to write this line also, that is the Django conf.urls import include. So once you've done that, do you guys have any doubts so far? Please ask in the comments. All the YouTube watchers. Okay, so moving forward, let's rerun the server. As you can see, you can see that our HTML file which we wrote is rendered over here. So the whole, I'll give you a roadmap for it. So what happens is whenever you write an HTML, it has to be part of an app, okay? And the app is part of the website. So the URLs that will be in the app will be part of the URLs that will be in the website. So whenever you write an HTML, it gets connected to the main website, such that whenever you write anything on your, like the website's name and something, you'll get the corresponding URL, like the HTML dedicated to that URL. In our case, it was empty, since we were using an empty URL to render home, and we got that. I hope I'm clear so far. Please ask if any of you have a doubt. So let's move forward, and since backend will always have a database, let's try to create a database table. Okay, so our first go would be to the models.py, in which we'll be creating, since we're creating a blog, let's create a post, like a blog post model. Okay, so so what we'll do is, I've created this model, which is basically a database schema, or you can call as a tables, column names. So what is the name of the table? The name of the table is post. So what you have to write, class post models.model, which is a Django convention, and then all of these entries here are the column names for the table. So as we know that created on would be a date time field, so I've created a models.datetime field, models.category. Django provides, like for a database, Django provides certain models, and all those models will have certain data types, a composite data structure sort of thingy. So you can add all of these things in the same way. If you have any doubt regarding any of this, please ask. Do any of you have a doubt in the models part? Just remember that models is nothing but a database table, a schema of how your database table should look like. and we'll be adding features to it. We'll be adding entries to it, and we'll be showing it how it works as a whole together. Yeah. So since none of you have asked any doubts so far, I'll move forward. And what we'll do is, since we have created this model, as you can see, what we need to do is we have to register this database, right? So we what we have to do is go to admin.py of our app, and in this we gotta do admin dot site dot register so that from dot So what this does is it tells the backend that we have created a database table and we want it as part of our main database. Okay, we can have multiple databases for it, so that's not a problem. We can have multiple tables. For example, if you make a very big website or like an e-commerce website, for that you might need a lot of inventory database. We'll have address database. You'll have user database. There'll be a lot of tables for it. So for all of that, you'll have to register all these models in your admin.py as shown over here. So once you've done that, what you need to do is we have to sync the backend with our current work. So the command for it is make migrations. This checks if is there any change in the database schema or anything. So as you can see, we get something known as create model post. What it does is it will create a model post in the backend, and in order to implement, like in order to move forward with this, the command for it is migrate. So it has created all these changes to the database, and we have this. Now, if we want to view the database created in the admin page, as you know that Django, like as some of you might know, that Django has provided as an admin page, which gives us full control over the database, the users that are logged in, the types of users. We can even provide authentication permissions, or we can even create groups of users. For example, if you are part of a big company and there are certain users who take part in the front end part, like front end development, some are in the back end, and all of this is synced with a website. For example, you will give certain access, like certain permissions to certain group of users and certain permissions to the other certain group of users, right? So this also can be done through Django using the admin page. So in order to go to the admin page, we need to create a super user. So the super user is done like this, created like this: py create super user. So now it asks username. Let's know try Aaron. Email address, let's skip it. Password. Django is very peculiar about passwords. So the easiest one that works for testing and all is also called as testing 321. Testing 321. So the super user is created successfully. Now what we'll do is we'll run the server, see if our Django model is present. Over here, let's write admin and we get this part. So our username was Aaron, the password was testing321, and we get logged in. As you can see, Django administration has given us all these things. So as I said, for the authentication and authorization, you'll have groups of users and you can add users to the whole website and you can add posts to it. So since I was showing you the the app which had this, so let's create a post. Okay, so let's just do today now. Title would be my Django project. Genre is technology. Content is I love Django. Everybody loves Django. Source would be the Django Central or any of the, it's up to you, whatever you give in the website. And let's just save it. Once you're done, as you can see that Django will create a post object, because since the model you created was a class, and some of you might know object-oriented programming, each class will have a certain object. So all these entries would be listed as objects in Django. Okay. So as you can open this, you can see that it's already written over here. You can delete this right from here, or you can edit it right from here, and you can move forward. I guess it's clear so far. If anyone has a doubt, please ask. So once you've done that, let's try to render like some of our work onto our website. Like we have created models, right? So we need to show people that these are the entries of the blogs we have. So what we'll do is we'll try adding beautification to it. So Django has something called as templating and static file handling. So whenever you create HTML, the bare bone HTML is just text, right? And if you want to add styles to it, if you want to have certain beautifications added to it, you'll have to add CSS. And Django by default doesn't allow CSS to be directly added. So what we'll do is we'll have to create a static files directory which keeps track of all the static files which we'll be using. Okay, and that's how we move forward. So what I'll do is I'll go to my blog. As you can see, my blog, create a folder called as static. Okay, and in static I'll have the assets and the CSS files and the images that I want to load onto my Django web page. Okay, so I'll just add some of it. Meanwhile, please hold on. uh, yes, Shubham, please ask. Yes, Shubham, what doubt do you have? Since it's live, I think it will be available on the website, like the channel. I hope that clears it out. Okay, let's move forward. Yeah, let's add a static file, and I'll add certain templates and all to it. So for the meanwhile, please hold on. So I wrote this HTML page using Bootstrap, and to save time, I've just copy pasted it. You can also try Bootstrap Studio to make your websites like the static pages, and then you can import them to your main website. So once I've done that, I've created a base.html. So what this does is, whenever, like for any website, there will be something which are repetitive throughout the website, right? So for that, for example, the navigation bar at the header, the footer will remain constant throughout the whole web page, right? So we don't need to, copy paste this everywhere. What we can do is we'll create a skeleton for it, which is known as the base.html, and the skeleton and will be used. Okay. So if any of you wants to create like if you want to create a website, like try to include some CSS files, if that's okay with you. So as you can see that I've created also, whenever you try to add static files to your website, you'll have to load these static files onto your templates, right? So the command, like the line we use over here is load static. What it does is it loads all the static files available in the static directory, and the CSS files, everything will be coming directly to it, and then we'll be having it. Since all of this is part of Bootstrap 4, and these things will be in the assets of all of it, I'll just have to copy the assets that we create in the Bootstrap directly to the static file so that I can directly access them over here. So what I'll do is I'll just show you one thing. So as you can see, I've just copied the assets of all the Bootstrap things I used over here, and there were certain images that I used that will be over here. And if like you don't know what this looks like, right? So what I'll do is, since this is the base HTML, I'll try to incorporate this into my home HTML, that is the extending part of it. HTML. My blog is the name that will be like the directory name for the template, so you'll have to use that. And after that, you'll have to write blog content, and inside the blog content, just copy paste the So after this, I'll rerun the server and show you. So this was the HTML CSS that I wrote, and then this is, as you can see, that what I extended is this part, the navigation bar, the background, and the color. And hello all, this is my first Django project, is the h1 tag that I included in the content. As you can see, any base.html, I said, like, we created a skeleton for it, right? Skeleton will have a container in which all your content will go. So the content here is the block. So as you can see, this block.content is what that will house the work that you give in it, right? So I hope that is clear so far. Is it visible? Is it visible? So what I'll do is I'll add some more entries to the post, and we'll render those things and see how it comes out. Okay. So created 4 objects, like 4 entries to the post table. And now I'll render it. So I've created a card over here that will have you know all these things that will be printing. But we also need to know that these things are in the backend right now. So we need to bring it to the front end. So we'll have to query these things. So for that, we'll have to create a view which shows render post request return. And this, let's create post equals to post dot object objects dot all. We'll have to even import post, and we'll have to pass this as a context. So whenever you query such objects from the database, we'll have to pass it as a context, as a dictionary to the HTML, so that we can use those variables, those functions and all to render certain things. So as you see, I've created this part, and now we'll have to include post.html into the URLs. So let's go to URLs, write path posts. And the post, we'll have to include that. As you can see, this is the home, and what all I did, like importing it from the backend and then putting it as a context to render it in the front end in the HTML, which gives this. So I created a card, and we have created, like, you can see I've created 4 entries to it. So you can do this part. I hope this is clear to everyone. If you have any doubt regarding the intricacies of it, please ask. I'll surely try to solve them. Does anyone have doubts? Let's now create way to register a user onto your backend, like for the authentication part. In the meanwhile, if anyone has any doubts regarding anything, like please ask.
Hello guys. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Due to some technical issues, Abhinav had to step out, but I will take forward from now on. Abhinav was planning on letting you guys know about the authentication model. So Django has an inbuilt authentication model, which you just have to import the libraries and use it. But right now, I'm going to tell you custom authentication model, so you can customize your user preferences. So first, I will start with building an authentication app. I'm going to create a Django app just for the purpose of authentication. So this is a slightly different project than what Abhinav was working on, but the process will be the same. As Abhinav told, after I added the app here, I'm going to go to my settings.py, which is in my main project folder. And then I'm going to add in the installed apps. You can simply add the app name or this add the app's config. I usually prefer this method because that's more detailed. You can see this name here in the uh, apps.py, where you usually have the project name, the app name. As you can see, this is the same name as this. I'm going to save it and exit. Now I'll go to the models.py in my auths app. This is where I'm going to create my custom user model. So first of all, I'm going to start with creating a user manager. Okay, so this user manager will basically manage how your user account actually works. Okay, so you don't have to do this and let Django use its inbuilt manager. But since since we're customizing the account, I would say it would be better if we customize the manager as well. So I'm going to import the manager along with the models here. So it's django.contrib.auth.models. This is where your Django's authentication model and stuff related to it exists in Django. I'm going to import abstract user and base user manager. Yes. So firstly, I'm going to start with creating a custom manager. So you can put whatever name you want. It's all right. I hope everyone is aware with the inheritance used in Python and Java. It's like object-oriented programming. All the properties from the base user manager class will be inherited by the my account manager. So here, since it's a manager, we don't really have to. We don't have to specify the attributes since it's a class manager, not a class by itself. So I'm just going to define the methods that we will be using. I'm going to create. You can change the method names also. That's all right. It's totally up to you. These are the arguments that I'm going to be passing from my views.py. By now I hope you guys are aware of what views.py is. Like Abhinav mentioned, it's the interface between your front end and back end. That is where you write your processes, like how exactly your front end and back end work with each other. If you guys have any doubts, please go ahead and ask me. It's all right. So I'm raising a validation. This here, I'm checking for a validation error, so that if an email currently does not exist in the database, it will be prompted we don't have the current user in the database, and he should probably sign up first. Is it clear so far, or do you want me to slower or fasten the pace according to you guys? Please let me know. So here I'm just creating the user actual. This is where I'm creating the actual user. So I'll assign the email ID. These are a few fields that we usually use in Django for validation of the email and assignment. You guys can use the documentation if you want in detail. If you want to know about them in detail. Yeah. After I create the actual user here, I'm going to set its password. After I set the password and the credentials, I'm going to save the user. So this is how we use save an instance of the object. We can specify the DB if you want, or else you don't have to. It's not mandatory, but it is encouraged. And after I create the user, I'm just going to return the user instance. So the next function in the same user manager we're going to create is a super user. I'm pretty sure you guys understood what a super user is by now. So basically, a super user in Django is that user which has access to the admin portal. I'm not sure if you guys had the chance to visit to the admin portal yet, but sure, we'll just go there in a minute. So I'm going to create a super user first. I'm not using this because this is actually Django's inbuilt, it's a keyword. So I'm just using an underscore to differentiate it. So creating a super user is not mandatory. You can always work with just the front end, but just in case something goes wrong with the front end, it's better to always have a backup and access it through the admin portal. So I'm going to use the Django's, the you create user which we just created, the create user method that we just created. And first I'm going to create a normal user with that, and then give the staff status to the user using using the is staff boolean status. Sorry. So I hope I'm being clear. We're going to create the same way we created user. So this is so far it. I think I'm in my shell. I'm just going to exit. Sorry. Okay. So after this, I'm going to give the admin status and the staff status. You might be wondering what the admin status is and what a staff status is. So the admin status is like I previously mentioned. You have access to the admin portal with that user account, and the staff status is also somewhat like the admin status, but except you have some functionalities which you can't access. just going to assign all the user statuses to it, and then I'm going to save the user with commit as true and the DB. Do you have any questions so far? You can let me know. So again here, as soon as I create the super user, I'm going to return the user instance. So yeah, this is the we created the user manager so far. So this is it. You can add or change anything you want. You can change what the validation error is, what the messages are. It's all up to you. And now we will create the actual user account. So since it's customization, I'm going to change it. I'm going to inherit from the abstract base user, and then I'm going to provide certain attributes. You can add or delete them, but the email user ID are obviously they're mandatory because you cannot have a user account without the username and email ID. You So Django has an email field where I can specify which specifies that the current attribute is a email is the form of an email. So this unique attribute makes sure that you have, I mean, the email ID the users are using are just unique. That means only one email can exist in the database. There can be no duplicates. So I'm going to use the same for the username, except it will be a char field. The char field is pretty much self-explanatory. You can change the max length as much as you want. It's all right. And then I'm not going to add anything else. I'm just going to leave my user with just an email and a username. Just for understanding sake, I'm just going to add another field like date joined, which will be a date time field. So a date time field, as the name says, it stores the attribute value in the form of date and time. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. Okay. Okay, great. So I'm just going to I'm going to remove auto now here because I just need an auto add. So after this, since it's a authentication model, I need to specify to Django database what is my username field and what are my required fields. Now here a username field is something which you need to use either an email ID or a password. You can mention either of them. I'm going to be using an email here. And the required fields are everything except the username, which you want the user to fill in mandatorily. This will be in the form of an iteratable. It can be a tuple or a list. I'm using the list here. Let me just check if the spellings are correct. Okay. And now it will have an object, which is basically your account manager. Okay. So there are many other ways in Django through which you can do the same. You can also create a query set, but since we are building a very basic authentication model, we would not be needing a large query set, so that you have to, customize the query set. So we can do just this much. And then, so there's this method called dunder str, which I will write now, but I will explain it to you later. I'm going to return the use. I'm going to comment this out for now so that you guys can understand the difference with or without using the dunder str method. So here I'm going to add two other functions which usually help. Well, okay, I'm just gonna leave the extra now just so that you guys can understand and to reduce the complexity. Do you guys have any questions so far? You can just let me know. Okay, so right now, since I have created the models, what I'm going to do is I'm going to migrate these changes into my database. All right, so I'm going to create, so this is how we make migrations. So make migrations usually, okay, we have an error here. I'm sorry. It's in line 95 here. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, sorry. Okay, wait. Because this is already, I'm working on an existing project. There's some issue with the authentication. But just give me a second. Okay, so actually there was a small error with the. I actually named this as auth before. That actually conflicted with the Django's inbuilt auth app. So I had to rename it and all. So I just created this new users app, and I just simply copied the models here from here to here. That is the only change I made so far. And obviously I added it here. And I applied the migrations here, if you can see. And we created the account model. And after that, now we have to so make migrations. What it does is it writes the commands to create a database, and migrate actually applies those commands into the database. So now you can see this is the first migration I'm making here. I deleted my previous database so you guys can understand it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a super user. Okay. This is how you create a super user in Django to access the admin portal. I'm creating test credentials here, but you can use anything. Uh, okay. Okay, I think I made an error with the. Okay, it's alright. I'm not really sure. Oh, sorry. This is actually a call and not an assignment. Sorry for the error. Okay, I can use this now. Okay. Jesus Christ. So I successfully created the test user. You can even use common passwords, it's not an issue. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the admin portal. So I'm going to do that by running the server. By running the server and going to the local host. So here in the local host, I'll go to the admin portal. So I'm going to log in with the credential that I just created. The credentials are test1, the test, but we have to use the email name, email ID instead of the username, which is this. sorry for that. Okay. Okay, I did not register this with the admin.py. Okay, really sorry for going off, but there was a small attribute error which I just resolved. And so we can access the admin site now. Please ignore this model because it's from another project, but this the user's accounts is what we're concerned with. So now we can see that this is the current user we are logged in with. And once you go to the details, you can see that the password is usually in the form of a hex code. And you see that it has all the statuses by default. Now, if we go back, so now I want to access this from the front end. Right. So guys, I already have a form here, which I previously wrote, which I'm just going to use the same form so that you guys can understand. But before that, we'll have to create the forms.py using which we can access the, you can register and log in. So here I'm going to create a new file called forms.py. Okay. So what this is going to do, here you're going to lay out the forms for your user account. So for that, from Django, you'll have to import forms. From Django, import forms. And then I'm going to import the models that we just created. That is from the same models. I'm going to import account. Okay, and before that, I'm going to use the Django's inbuilt user creation form for creating the users. It lies in the same django.contrib.auth forms. I'm going to import the user or user creation form. Okay. Along with that, I'm also going to import the Django's authenticate functionality function. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to inherit from the user creation form. Okay. And from that, I'm going to create my my custom registration form. I'm going to name it as sorry. Yeah. I'm going to inherit it from the customer creation form. So my email would be forms.email field. And then it'll have a I'm going to use the same max length as in my models. That is 60. Okay. And now here we have the meta class. Meta class is the first thing to be called in any class. It usually lays out the most important details of the class, like what kind of class is it, what is it, what model it is based on, stuff like that. So the fields here is a compulsory attribute for the forms. From a Django form, it can be any sort of iteratable in the form of a list or a tuple. So I'm using this one right now. Here it would be username, email, and then I'm also going to have the password, and the custom password. Okay. So clean method is called right after you submit a form. So it usually removes the redundant. Okay, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, sorry for that. Can you see it now? Okay, great. Okay, so clean method is usually called after you submit a form. That usually removes the redundant, and this is why you cache the errors in your form. So is valid is an inbuilt function which states if your form is valid or not. It's a boolean. So I'm going to create my user here. Well, we don't need this actually. Sorry guys, we don't need a safe clean method for the registration, but you also need a password confirmation field, which I forgot to add. A password 2, password 1. So password 1 is the normal password, and the password 2 is your password confirmation field. So your user registration form is done. Okay. So I'll also simultaneously create the user. For checking sake, I'm going to see if the server is still running and if there are any errors. There does not seem to be any errors so far. So I'm going to also create a user authentication login form. So I'm just going to name it as login form. And I'm going to extract this from forms.model form. Yeah, I'm just going to use this simpler. I'm going to use it as a login form. My model will be account here. And I'm going to have the same fields as above. I'm not going to have all the same fields. I'll just be needing the username field, the email field and the password field. So I'm just going to copy paste it here and remove the adequate fields. I'll just have one password here and the email and not, yeah. Okay, so here we have to add the clean method. It is necessary here. So, like I said, is valid is returned to boolean. It is an inbuilt function. So in Django, you have an advantage of overwriting all the inbuilt functions, so that you can customize it according to your own requirements. If you have any doubts, please post them in the comment section. I will look into that. So here I'm going to just check if the email ID and password are the current combination according in my database. So for that, I'm going to be using this authenticate function, which I just imported. So this checks if the email ID and password are the correct pair, if they're even existing or not. So if they're not, I'll raise an error that these credentials are wrong. Uh, okay, sorry. Yeah, password will be password. So if the credentials are wrong, then I'm simply going to raise a forms.validation error, that invalid login details. So that's so I'm just going to run my server again and see if there are any errors. Okay, we have no errors so far. That's a good thing. So now that we have our forms ready, we're going to use them in the views.py. So like I mentioned before, your views.py is the interface between your front end and back end. So you have to be very careful here with what you mention, because it'll affect everything you do a lot. Okay. So here I'm going to start with importing the model and the forms that I just created. From .models, I'm going to import account, and from my forms, I'm going to import these two. That is my login form and my registration form. Alright. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create three functions here: a registration view, a login view, and a logout view. Okay. So first I'm going to start with the registration view. Alright. I'm going to I'm keeping the naming convention pretty simple, so it's easier to understand. Register. I'm just going to name it as register view or registration view. Okay, and the arguments will be request. So a request in a Django view basically contains all of your header data, your metadata, and stuff like that. You can actually use the data directly from the request, but it's better to process them first before actually using them. So there are many other. I'm pretty sure you guys are aware of the types of HTTP methods, but we'll mainly be focusing on two types of requests, that is the post and get request. So we'll have different methods for each request. So for the post request, I'll save the registration, the user object into the database, and if it is a get request, I'll just simply just show the form details. So just make sure that you pass the request.post data into the registration form, because this is what actually contains, holds your form data after a post request. So here I'm going to save the form. You can create a custom save method inside your form itself, but it's a good practice to do it in your view for every object. So a clean data is what you get after the form's clean method is processed. You can do this, or you can directly use a get data. This is recommended. A raw password is something which hasn't been processed yet, so I'm going to be using that. Sorry guys, I think we're running late on time, but it'll take just like another 5 to 15 minutes to complete this. So now, since we have the email and password, we're going to create the user account. So what I'm going to do is that I think I forgot to import something for that. So there are certain shortcuts in Django which you can use directly. So there's one thing called as reverse lazy. A reverse lazy is something which I'll explain it while when we use it right now. But first, I'm just going to import them, and I'm also going to import the login, authenticate, and logout inbuilt functions from Django.concept.auth. Okay. So here, as soon as I get my email and password from the registration form, I'm going to authenticate the user with the given credentials. That's it. And then since I created this account, I'm going to log in with the same. So I hope you guys are understanding the difference between authenticate and login here. If you don't, just please ask me in the comment section. I'll be glad to help. So here, see, here I'm actually, sorry, I missed a point here. I will process the form only if and only if the form is valid. So I have to check or if the form is valid or not. So I'll be using this form.isValid here. So if the form is not valid, I'll just go back to the same page and render the form again. Or you have different ways to handle invalid form. You can raise an error, you can go back to the home page and many such stuff. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to send it to my template. So if you're wondering how you can send the data from your database to your HTML form where you actually present it in the front end, then it is with the help of this context data. So context data should be, the variable name can differ obviously, but this should be a dictionary which has the information, and inside you're going to pass this dictionary inside your template, which I'll show how exactly right now. But after you pass that, you can access these data with the variable names you've given as the keys of the dictionary. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So the other situation we have to handle is if the request is post. If the request is get, we already handled the post request. So for the get request, I'm just going to simply render the form here. We don't have to pass any arguments here for get data, unlike post data, unless and until you actually customize with attribute keyword arguments and arguments. You don't have to pass anything. So here I'm going to pass the form again to the HTML form. So this is how you render the data inside the HTML form. So once you return render it, so return render, again, it's pretty self-explanatory. All you have to do is pass the request, specify the template name. We haven't created the template so far, but we will create that in a minute. So the template location is going to be users, which is the current app's name, and the HTML file name that would be register.html. Now after this, we will pass a third argument called context. All right, this is the same context variable that we just created here. I hope this makes sense to you guys. If you have any uh, questions, you can just ask them to me. I also missed a small point here that if the form is valid and we authenticated the user with the credentials, we will redirect him to a certain page. Say I already have a home page in this project of mine, so I'm just going to create redirect the user to that URL. So this is pretty same as rendering. You have to import it along with a redirect in from the Django shortcuts. So unlike render, we don't have to specify a request or a template name to the redirect option because we are redirecting it to an already existing URL. All right. So all I have to specify is the verbose name or the URL, the shortcut name of that URL, which I have created as home here. You guys can use that. Let me just check if I have the home in my actual URLs. Okay, I have something called as, I don't have something called as home. So I'm going to return it to just a second, guys. Let me just check if I have the existing URL. Okay, we don't, it's all right. We don't have to do that. So what I'm going to do is instead of redirecting it, I'm just going to render a HTTP response. How we do that is that, or else, okay, I'm just going to, okay, never mind. I'll just render another HTML form. So I'm just going to let it be here. Sorry for the confusion. Yeah, so after this, I'm going to, so we have the registration form done with us. So let's just go through it. If the request is post, we validate the form. If the form is valid, we process the data, create the and authenticate the user. And after, if the form is not valid, we just display the error or whatsoever your uh, way of handling the error is. And if the request is dead, we just display the form in the form of context data. Okay, now let's go and create a templates directory here. I'm going to create a templates directory, and inside the templates directory, I'm going to use another users. So it's up to you if you want to use another users model, but it is a nice practice to have. This is the convention Django recommends. So here I'm going to use a register.html file. Okay, so so you don't have to do a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to process the form which I got from the context data. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do is yeah, sorry, okay. So here, what I will do is since if you remember, I just passed the form with the variable form, so I'm going to access it with the variable name form. Okay, so here I'm going to create a form. Before that, I'm just going to put some heading like register your account here. Okay, then I'm going to create a form field. The action, we don't require an action. We can just put the method is post, right? And then a CSRF token is very important. Okay, we already got that. Okay. And now, so you guys must be wondering how we, like, since it's Django, it means it has most of the functionalities of Python. So this is how we access loops and, logical statements in Django. We use a curly brace with a percentage symbol on both ends of the statement. So this is how Django identifies that this is, uh, a statement which you have to compute, not just render. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So you can do this. You can access this as simply as you do access a dictionary or a list in Python. For a variable inside my form, for a field inside my form, what I'm going to do is I'm going to display the fields Label tag. A label tag is nothing but what the attribute name is. Like for example, the label tag for my email field would be email. The label tag for my username field would be username, and so on like that. I hope that makes sense again. Now, after I display the label tag, I also want to display the field. Okay, the field itself is a form input. So as soon as you put data here, it will take the data and use it for processing. Okay, so I'm just going to put a break statement here for visibility, for a better readability. And after that, after the for loop, what I'm going to do, uh, it just yeah. After the for loop, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a button which would specify, which is my submit button, for which I have to click for completing the registration process. Okay, so I have it here. Also here I'm going to add a very small section. You don't have to, but it's better. This section is basically, this would be, if I already have an account, it will just redirect me to that place. For this, I'm just going to switch to Django. You can always look up for the syntax. It's not a big problem. So here, what I'll do is I'll add a URL. Okay. So this is how a URL looks in Django. Okay. And here you have to again add the shortcut name you provided for the URL, which I'll just show in a minute. It will be login. If I already have an account, I'm just going to redirect the person to login. So I'm just going to copy, remove it from here. Okay, I'm just going to create a link here and I'll paste the URL here. Okay, so I'm just say already have an account. Alright, I hope this also makes sense to you guys. Okay, so now what will do is we'll add this registry. We'll create a URL for this registration thing. So I haven't created a urls.py as of now, so I'll create one right now. Okay, so we have to just use, if you don't, it's okay if you don't remember what all you have to import. You can just go to the home URL, that is new project URLs, and just copy this, just copy the entire thing, and then you can edit what all you don't want. Okay, we don't need the admin site. I also don't need the include, so I'm going to remove that. So what I'll have to do is that this is how I have a path, and then I'm going to specify a URL like users register. Alright, from the users register, I have to also specify the view I'm using. I didn't import it, so I'm just going to do that. From .views, I'll import registration view and login view. Okay, I haven't created the login view yet, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to do the registration view. Okay, now this is how you create a shortcut name. So I'm going to have the name as simply as register. Okay, so using this name, you can access this URL throughout your entire Django project. I hope that makes sense. So now I should also register this URL with my actual project URLs. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to include all the URLs under my users app. So this is a convention you use for including the URLs inside another app. Okay, I hope you understand what I'm saying. So let's just check if this is working. My server is still running, which is a good thing. So here I will start from an incognito mode, which so I can authenticate you guys. So the way I should go is that the URL that I specified was, let me just check. It was users hyphen forward slash register. So I'm going to go there. So you can see that we have the registration form here. So I'm going to simply put some test data which I haven't used before. Say demo@test.com. A simple pass. Try not to use usually use passwords. Okay, just a second. Okay, sorry. Okay. Sorry, just a second. Oh, sorry, it's not get data, it's just get. I made a small mistake here. It's just get, it's not get data. Yeah. Line 16. Okay, it's raw password. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry guys, I missed a couple of stuff here. I should also pass in the request along with the account. So you will either take the current authenticated user from your request. Okay, I didn't save the form really. Sorry. Yeah, the first thing you do after you save the you validate the form is save it, which I clearly didn't. So what I'm just going to do it again. I'm going to go to users register. I'm going to use different credentials this time. Okay. Okay. Uh, I'm not really sure.